Welcome back to the Adventures of the Monad, which will look at life, the universe, and everything. My name is Kazim Kamal Ur-Rahim. In this series, I ask the question, where do we come from? Who are we? And where are we going? I post one presentation a week. Please subscribe to my website and hit the bell icon for notifications of future videos. You can also leave comments and join in forum discussions on my website. I ended the last presentation by beginning to look at the causal world that surrounds this planet, which is the higher mental body of our planetary logos. Although we divide the mental world into two distinct units, it must be always remembered that the causal plane is just the upper 2 molecular and 1 atomic level of the mental plane. What makes the defining difference is that the causal world operates at a frequency range that puts it in the second triad. It would be expected that if you have two higher molecular levels in this body, 47.3 and 47.2, things would be more refined than it is in the lower mental body of the first triad. However, the jump is greater than just one molecular level higher. The reason is that the lower mental body operates in what is known as the concrete mental world, and the causal body functions in the abstract world. This seems to release the boundaries of how knowledge is perceived and absorbed. This has already been discussed in some detail. In this presentation, I wish to continue my exploration of the causal world and then go on to talk about one of the most interesting and fundamental topics in the whole of esoterics, the rays. The causal world is our true home. We incarnate from it and return to it. Enlightened people are able to experience this world objectively. Monads that have reached the compassionate level and are focused in their 47.4 permanent molecule experience this subplane subjectively. For the three younger grades of humanity, and that is the vast bulk of us, we are unconscious when we reach this plane at the end of our incarnation and our passage through the lower planes. Whatever the status of your consciousness on the causal plane, all human first selves and second selves, which include enlightened humans and members of the fifth kingdom, are seen in the causal world, whether incarnate or not. First selves, who are focused in either the 49.1, 48.1, and 47.4 permanent atoms or molecules, leave the majority of their causal substance on the causal plane when incarnating. The 5% of matter that separates remains separate for the duration of the whole incarnation. Second selves, including monads focused in their 47.1, 46.1, and 45.4 atoms or molecules, incarnate with their entire causal body. They can be regarded as souls with a body, rather than bodies with a soul. The advantage of having all your causal substance with you in an incarnation is that you have access to all you have done and learnt over the tens of thousands of incarnations. I mentioned earlier that all human monads have a causal body. Indeed, having a causal body is what makes us human in the first place. The subplane where these bodies are found depends on the molecular and atomic content of our causal egg. Yes, the egg is back. Only now it is more radiant. It is still bottom heavy for most of the monads incarnate today, so those causal envelopes are located on the lowest of the causal subplanes, 47.3. When the monad reaches the cultured stage in its evolution, 47.3 molecules begin to be replaced by 47.2 molecules, outnumbering the 47.3 molecules. So, the monad moves its focus to this higher molecular level. Further up the chain, by the time the monad reaches the compassionate phase of its evolution, 47.3 molecules are replaced by 47.2 molecules, which in turn are replaced by 47.1 atoms. At enlightenment, the 47.1 atom outnumbers the 47.2 molecules, and the monad moves its focus from the 47.4 permanent molecule to the 47.1 permanent atom. As a ballpark figure, an enlightened soul may spend 200 years on the causal plane between incarnations, but it could be a matter of days. The length of time the monad chooses to spend in the causal envelope depends on social conditions on Earth. It should be remembered that the life on the planet proceeds in waves, with conditions changing but also returning. This means that a monad may choose to spend thousands or even millions of years on the causal plane before returning to Earth. It is the causal plane where we mainly meet and learn from the higher kingdoms. Looking at the causal envelope, we see 3 levels. 2 are molecular and 1 is atomic. The 2 molecular levels are linked to the concept of intuition and inspiration. I wish now to look at these 2 terms and decipher exactly what they mean. What most people regard as intuition is just an impulse from the subconscious mind. In the same vein, what is termed inspiration usually originates from the emotional or mental plane. However, real intuition and inspiration comes from the subjective causal consciousness. Intuition is self-acquired knowledge that originates from the causal plane. To be precise, from the 47.3 subplane. What the monad has to do is to raise its focus of consciousness to a level where it can access this store of knowledge and ideas. Inspiration is a level of perception that is a whole subplane higher. It comes from the 47.2 subplane and is information that is received from members of the planetary hierarchy. It could even be from your guardian angel. So note the difference. Intuition is self-acquired and inspiration is received. Only enlightened monads are able to consciously perceive the causal world. Monads having reached the compassionate phase are, however, able to acquire information from the causal plane using one of the 2 methods outlined. It is worth repeating what objective consciousness is all about when a monad reaches the causal plane. Objective causal consciousness can identify with the total consciousness of the causal world. This results in the past being experienced in the present moment. Causal consciousness also perceives the causes of events occurring in the lower worlds, giving insight into the reasons and mechanisms for physical events. Waking consciousness can only perceive physical events, which are merely effects of causes. By comparison, causal consciousness sees the cause giving rise to those effects. You now have the ability to gain a comprehensive understanding of reality. If you remember back to my presentation on the group soul, the aspect of the human condition that separates us from animals, plants, and the mineral kingdom is the fact that we have an individual causal body. Our eventual aim is to enter the 5th kingdom, where we rejoin a group consciousness. I called this group a soul group, as opposed to a group soul. The reasons for this have already been discussed in detail. Having said all of this, in the 4th kingdom, we humans are still connected to a group of other individuals in the causal world. These causal groups differ from group souls of the lower kingdoms because there are no shared subtle bodies. Connections are now used for friendship and shared experiences that have developed over thousands of incarnations. Bonds initially form when groups of monads graduate into the human kingdom and receive their causal bodies. Personal soul groups can range from hundreds to millions. These common shared experiences cover every conceivable relationship combination. Someone you see as your partner today may have been a parent, a sibling, a child, a friend, or even an enemy in many previous incarnations. This is why it is nonsensical to get enmeshed in the idea of a soulmate or a twin soul. You may be drawn to someone and think you love them unconditionally, and nothing would separate you. Reevaluate this position when they run off with someone else. How could this possibly be? Surely they were your other half. Well, clearly, halves can be divided into quarters and quarters into eighths. We stick together because we know and trust each other and have shared karma. Here are your true soulmates. In a previous presentation, I briefly mentioned the various stages to enlightenment. I talked about how a monad enters the path that eventually leads to the fourth initiation, I-4, that graduates the soul from the fourth to the fifth kingdom. The mechanism by which the process happened in the past was a monad being guided by a master through the rigors of the initiation process. With increasing numbers of people reaching the compassionate stage in their personal development, it has become no longer feasible for members of the planetary hierarchy to take individual disciples. In the past, the master, who was a monad that had taken the fifth initiation, I-5, could tutor individuals on the causal plane. This happened when the person was asleep or meditating. In this way, the soul was guided to the fifth kingdom. The new teaching methodology is that the Arhat, I-4, the monad residing in the unity kingdom, teaches small groups of individuals, usually numbering no more than 9. These individuals are brought together in the unity body of the Arhat to form an embryonic collective being. This facilitates the acquisition of unity consciousness, which is the basis of existence on the fourth plane of matter. When monads begin to develop subjective causal consciousness, they look for another 8 members to form a causal group. The prerequisite is that they all have to be at a similar stage of development. Close bonds cultivated in the compassionate and enlightened stage of development result in collective soul group consciousness when they graduate together into the fifth kingdom. If a member lags behind the rest of the group, they are supported to catch up. This really is a case of all for one and one for all. We have been discussing the 3 worlds around our planet and linking these worlds to the envelopes that surround our bodies when we incarnate. If we put aside our physical world, 3 worlds above us have been given various designations in the past. The emotional world is usually known as the halls of ignorance for the obvious reasons. We concoct everything we see there and then mistake this for reality. The mental / causal worlds are known as the halls of learning. We not only gain knowledge, but we learn to apply it correctly. This eventually leads the monad to the fifth kingdom, known as the unity world, and here you find the halls of wisdom. Unity consciousness gives the monad the capacity to be omnipotent and omniscient in all the worlds populated by humanity. It is by no accident that the fifth kingdom is known as the kingdom of God. The unity world is also sometimes called the promised land. To get here requires help. You cannot graduate from the fourth to the fifth kingdom on your own. You can see here how this material fact has been misconstrued by the Christian Church. They concocted a belief in the person of Jesus as being essential for gaining admittance to the kingdom of heaven. All beings in the unity world and above that are part of a collective. This goes back to the concept I introduced about God being a collective rather than an individual. In the fifth kingdom, there are 7 collective groups corresponding to 7 rays. I have not delineated what a ray is yet, but I will get there eventually. When the monad moves from the 5th to the 6th kingdom, the 7 rays merge into 3, corresponding to the 3 primary rays. Again, I'm using phrases here which do not make any sense to you at the moment. What you should come to realize, and I would be very disappointed if you do not, is that these primary rays correspond to the 3 fundamental aspects of existence. These are motion, consciousness, and matter. Unless you have not been paying attention, by now you should be well appraised of the significance of the number 7 in the very underlying structure of our universe. How do we build up to the number 7, and why is this number so significant? Let's start with the number 3 and the Holy Trinity. Or we could start with the 3 triads and the 3 units within each triad. All these units of 3 correspond back to the 3 fundamental aspects of existence: energy, motion, consciousness, and matter. Fine. So we see the main links there. Everything is based on the 3 aspects of creation that are found anywhere in the universe. What then is the significance of the number 7? We have 7 cosmic planes, 7 solar planes, 7 subplanes on each of these planes, and last but not least, 7 rays. So, there you have the 7, but why 7 and not some other number? If you can accept that 3 is always going to be there, as it is the fundamental configuration of the universe, then you can understand why 7 is the next logical number to sequence things by, as there are 7 ways you can combine 3. There are 2 ways to obtain 7 from 3, and both methods are used in the universe. The universe can be divided vertically into 7 cosmic planes, 7 solar planes, and 7 subplanes. Each of these can be divided into 7 rays or types. There is an affinity between the 7 planes and the rays, which is seen in the grey squares. The first thing to note is that the same principle applies to plane 1 to 7 as to the 7 cosmic planes and the 7 subplanes. The lower planes are denser and material. The higher planes are more subtle and energetic. An important fact to bear in mind is that plane 1 is the source of the 6 lower planes. This is analogous to white light being refracted in its spectrum. This is seen again in the light analogy, where the spectrum can be recombined to produce white light. Plane 1 is therefore the beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega. Plane 1, in the case of our solar system, plane 43, is where the Bodhisattva, who is Christ, is centered. No matter which set of 7 planes or subplanes you are looking at, the 3 aspects of existence, energy, motion, consciousness, and matter, are equally dominant on plane 1. The lower 6 planes have 1 dominant aspect, 1 secondary aspect, and 1 minor aspect. It can be seen that energy is dominant on planes 1, 2, and 3, secondary on planes 4 and 5, and minor on planes 6 and 7. Okay, now we get to the rays and what they are all about. The important thing to get clear right from the start is that rays are a big deal. Just about the biggest deal there is. We all know about horoscopes. Ever wondered why this system of determining events or personality types never quite rings true? The reason is that it is not the planets or constellations that govern events shaping you or your life, but the combination of rays that just happen to lens through these planets and star clusters. To complicate matters even further, the effects of rays differ depending on which ray your subtle bodies resonate to. This is a set of 3-dimensional variables, and only enlightened souls, and then not all of them, have a clue what is going on. If someone pitches up to you and says they can tell you which ray you have in each one of your bodies, head straight for the exit and don't look back. So, what is a ray? There are 7 types of energy, consciousness, matter that stream down from higher cosmic planes. These streams or rays influence life in our solar system. As an aside, the Bible refers to these rays as 7 streams. Each plane or subplane is composed of some kind of matter. From a material perspective, all atoms or molecules on that plane are identical. They do, however, possess different qualities or traits. Every one atom coming into existence is impressed with one of the 7 types of rays, giving rise to 7 types or colors of atoms. Remember, you were once one of these primary atoms. Therefore, you are indelibly linked to one of these 7 rays. However, through your journey through the universe and back to the source, you will encounter all the other rays in myriads of ways, as you will shortly see. One atoms combine to form the atoms and molecules of the lower planes. The affinity that exists between the 7 planes and the 7 rays ensures that type 1 atoms, which you could say are the first ray atoms, are the primary components of 1 atoms on the first plane of matter. Type 2 atoms, the second ray atoms, are the primary components of type 2 atoms on the second plane. This carries on as the numbers increase. The point to take home from these tables is that each ray creates a type of atom, and each type of atom has an affinity to a particular plane. This repeats itself in each cosmic kingdom down to the planes in the solar system, and the subplanes within the solar system. Simple? Right. Well, actually, things get a lot more complicated as you begin to work out the permutations and combinations these rays and planes can get into as you descend the 49 planes of matter in the universe. For example, let's take the 48 one atom on the 7th cosmic plane. Well, as it is on the 7th cosmic plane, that makes it a 7th ray atom. But 48 is on the 6th solar plane. That makes it a 6th ray type of atom. But wait, 48.1 is on the 1st subplane of the 6th solar plane. That makes it a 1st ray type of atom. Here comes the $6 million question. What type of atoms are the primary components of the 48.1 atom? Do you see the levels of complexity that is available to generate differences within our universe? Now, someone has just waltzed up to you and tells you that they can tell you what ray configurations you are in each one of your envelopes. What will you do next? Let's break down how we can view this complexity by looking at the fractal nature of a snowflake. The first diagram shows the basic structure of a snowflake. Think of this as representing the 7th cosmic physical plane. This shape is primarily composed of atoms that come under the influence of the 7th ray. From a materialistic point of view, this is the 43.1 atom. The smaller peaks present in the second diagram represent the 6th solar plane of the 48 atom. This is composed primarily of atoms that come under the influence of the 6th ray. This is because the emotional plane is found on the 6th plane of the solar system if you are counting from the highest plane downwards. The smallest peak in the third diagram represents the 1st subplane, which is the 48.1 atom. This being the highest position of the subplane is therefore influenced by the 1st ray. I hope I have not given you mental indigestion. Reread the script I present on my website. Getting your head around the concept of a ray is easy, as long as you do not drill down into the details of how this ray influences anything. I have not even given you half of the complexities involved. In the last of this series of presentations, I wish to complete my story on the rays and their functions by looking at further examples of how interactions occur between the 3 primary rays. If you wish to read a transcript of the presentation or leave comments, links to my website are in the description box below. Thank you.